Hey, this is your hillbilly historian coming to you to talk about common sense, truth, justice, and the American way. Today I want to talk about something you never hear history professors talk about in your high school or college classrooms. Hardly ever, rarely. I don't recall anybody ever talking about it in my college history courses or high school. But today I want to talk about it. It's a thing called logistics. Yes, supply. The supply train. I saw a movie one time called Battle of the Bulls, starred Henry Fonda and a whole bunch of great actors. And Robert Shaw played this German general. Robert Shaw was a great English actor. He was playing this general, and he had a chocolate cake sitting on his counter that he had captured, that had been captured from an American soldier. And Robert Shaw made the comment that, if America has the fuel to carry cakes across the Atlantic Ocean to their troops, then they're going to be hard to beat. And that's logistics. And believe me, supply is everything in warfare. You've got to have the supplies to conduct a good campaign, a good warfare. Not just men, but your men have to be supplied. They have to be clothed, fed, transported, fuel taken care of. The American Civil War, the South lost the war of what I call the War of the Federal Invasion, because they just did not have the logistics. And when their envoys went to England looking for help, they offended the English so badly that the English refused help. Now, the South was able to get a little help here and there, but not enough. In the South, even the cross ties on railroads rotted and decayed to the point to where if a train was pulling a load of cars and they were too heavily loaded, the rails would sink down into the cross ties and into the ground and flip the trains over. The South was having to carry half or 1/4 weight in their railroad cars because they did not have the logistics to even replace railroad ties. So their rails were becoming unusable. That meant that supplies could not be hauled. And anyway, they didn't have a whole lot of supplies. You take the cavalry, horses in the Union Army, they received a bushel of corn a day each. They were well-fed horses. My grandmother's oldest brother, William, born in 1840, she was born in 1886. Yeah, her daddy had I think 23 children over 46-year period, and my grandmother was his last child, his 23rd and last child. That was Jordan Boyd. And Jordan Boyd, I think, had 2 or 3 wives. My grandmother was born by his last wife, but his first wife gave him a son in 1840. He named William, and William rode with Nathan Bedford Forrest as a young cavalryman. And he told stories about how if you got a horse shot out from under you, they'd give you 5 or 6 weeks to go find your own horse, because the South even though Nathan Bedford Forrest was able to fund and start his army, he wasn't able to provide enough logistics to really keep it going real strong. And so if a guy got a horse shot out from under him, he was given 5 or 6 week leave to go find another horse. He was responsible for getting his own horse. And my grandmother's oldest brother used to say that they loved to steal horses from the Union Army because Union horses were better fed, they were bigger and stronger mounts. So they'd go and try to steal a horse from a Union cavalryman so that they could rejoin the cavalry. Because if they failed to find a horse within 5 or 6 weeks, they were sent to the infantry. They became infantrymen, and no cavalryman wants to end up in the infantry. And so the Union fed their horses a bushel of corn or grain a day, and they had the supplies that they could do that. Confederate soldiers, cavalry, they had to stop and let their horses graze in a field. They would find a field, stop, and the entire cavalry would sit around under shade trees and let their horses graze for 4 or 5 or 6 hours. That was the only way they had of keeping their horses fed. And then they'd give them what little grain they had to help supplement the grazing. But the Union horses, they didn't have to do that. They were all well fed, they could march all day. So even the great vaunted Southern Cavalry, which was considered one of the greatest cavalries on earth up to that time, began to wear out. After a couple of years, they were so weak that they just couldn't handle it anymore. And the same thing with the troops. The troops are going. A lot of the Southern troops went barefoot because they didn't have the shoes. They didn't have shoe factories in the South, and didn't have as much food to feed our troops. Didn't have enough replacement troops. For the North was bringing replacements in, promising the Europeans property when they get off the boat in New York or wherever. They were putting blue uniforms and sent down to Grant. So Grant was never short of men, what they called cannon fodder. He had plenty of cannon fodder. And Union had a huge, strong industrial base. And then you take World War II, for example. The United States won World War II. We were able to defeat the Germans and the Japanese both, and the Italians, basically with supplies. When our supplies started pouring into Russia, we sent something like 10,000 train engines, something like 100,000 train cars. When Ted, who started the communications system in the United States, old Ted down there in Atlanta, he went to Russia in 1986, and they run 2 hours a night where he, a 2-hour documentary every night for a week, where he interviewed a lot of the Russian people, Russian soldiers, Russian generals, and disclosed a lot of things we didn't know at that time. And some of the favorite words among the Russian people was Studebaker, because we sent thousands of Studebaker trucks, shipped them to Russia so that they could have transport for their troops. Jeep. Russians love the word Jeep because we sent something like 10,000 Jeeps over there for their officers to ride around in for communication and command protocols and stuff. And they loved, absolutely, totally loved Spam. Spam came out of the Chicago Meatpacking Company, and the Russians thought that was the greatest damn food they'd ever eaten in their lives. They loved that canned Spam that we were shipping over there by the shiploads to help feed the Russian people while they fought the Germans. And we sent something like 50,000 Sherman tanks over there. They found a German note that a German officer had logged after the Battle of Kursk, where he said, this German officer said, we're handling the Russian tanks, the KV-1s and the T-34s, we're handling them, but them damn Shermans are giving us all kinds of problems. Because the Sherman was a real light, really fast tank, hard to hit if you were running full speed across the field. And they could use their speed to get around behind German tanks, which were big and cumbersome and slow, and the German tanks were vulnerable from behind. And those Sherman tanks would quickly get in behind them and blow them up from behind. It was a really, really bad situation for the Germans. But our logistics, we could give thousands, tens of thousands of tanks to the British. In fact, at the Battle of El Alamein, Montgomery, he whipped Rommel there at the Battle of El Alamein, and he had just received 600 Sherman tanks delivered by the U.S. He had 200 British chieftains, and that 600, that gave him 800 tanks to go up against Rommel's 200. And by the time Rommel quit the battle and retreated, Rommel only had 50 tanks left, and Montgomery only had about 100 left. So Rommel was kicking his ass. He just didn't have the logistics, the fuel, and the ammunition to continue fighting. He had to retreat. And Montgomery won the battle because of American logistics. And when they show films of the British fighting at the Battle of El Alamein, they never show a Sherman tank. Same in Russia. When they show films, when you watch the Hitler Channel, History Channel, and you watch documentaries on the Battle of Kursk, the Russians, you never see a Sherman tank. You only see the T-34s and the KV-1s, Russian tanks. So, the British and the Russians both didn't want to admit America was winning their damn battles for them. And, of course, we lost the Battle of Kasserine Pass, and, of course, after we lost that battle, command was readjusted in North Africa, and General Patton was put in charge of our forces, and he whipped them into shape. We didn't have any major problems after that. Patton was a real fighting general, and he really trained his men to fight hard, and they did. But anyway, logistics. Logistics is what wins wars. And believe me, America, you take it, even in the Pacific, you know, we started out, we only had 3 carriers in the Pacific, 3 or 4. Japanese had 11. And we were able, by the end of the war, we had something like 20 mainline carriers. Those were carriers that carried 75 or 80 planes each. And then we had something like 80 what they call CVEs, escort carriers, that carried like 20 planes each. And they were used for logistical support of the main carriers. It was amazing the amount of material we had. And poor old Japan, they were struggling to get carriers in the water, and our submarines did such a great job against Japan that when they would try to sail a new great huge battleship or a great new aircraft carrier, our submarines were sitting there waiting on them and sunk them, sent them to David Jones's bottom. And so America's logistical industrial capacity, and we built Liberty ships. I think they were putting them out like 1 a day or something like that. And we were building aircraft there at Willow Run outside Detroit. We were building aircraft. They were coming off the assembly line, one bomber every hour, big bombers. And we had all kinds of aircraft plants in California, putting out all kinds of fighters. We came out with that P-51. The British, you know, it wasn't a very good fighter plane till the British put that Rolls-Royce engine in that thing. And boy, I'm telling you what, it turned it into the best fighter in the European theater or anywhere. That was the best prop fighter ever built. The P-51 Mustang. What was it? The Cadillac of the Air. And it was an amazing fighter plane. And fighters like Chuck Yeager and them people, boy, they really did a job on the Germans and the Red Tails there in Italy. They never lost a single bomber that they protected. It was absolutely amazing, the American logistics. I know Dad, they captured some Germans when he was over there in Europe fighting, and he said one of them Germans told him, said, you know, we kill 1 American and 2 takes his place. So, you know, that's kind of the way it was. Logistically, we kept our companies big and strong, because as soon as 1 or 2 guys got hit, there was replacements sent up. And that's the way it was. If you lost 10 men in a fight, 10 guys showed up the next day. That's the way our logistics were. And our men always had plenty of supplies, plenty of guns, plenty of ammunition, plenty of food, everything they needed to fight the Germans effectively. And without those logistics, and you know, the Battle of the Bulge, the Germans got off to a good start, but they ran out of fuel. Basically, they had to walk back home. Because their tanks and trucks, they just simply run out of fuel. They thought they could capture American fuel dumps, but they failed to do that. So they ran out of fuel, and without their tanks and trucks and vehicles, the German army had no punch. And so we defeated them in the Battle of the Bulge because Patton had plenty of supplies. He got his tanks up there. He relieved Bastogne and with his tanks because he had the fuel to go wherever he needed to go to help America out in that fight. It was just absolutely amazing, the productivity of the American people. And you know, they talk about that woman, Riveter, who they put up on posters and everything. A lot of our women went to work in the factories. I had an aunt that went to Cincinnati and went to work in the industry there, making weapons for America. She worked in the industrial section of Cincinnati, helping out. So she was one of those riveter women who went to work for American industry. It's just absolutely amazing how strong America was. And then Vietnam, Lord God, we had supplies there like you wouldn't believe. I mean, it was just amazing the money we spent on supplies there in Vietnam. We never lost a battle in Vietnam, but we lost the war because a bunch of Democrats in Congress voted to stop helping South Vietnam, and that was it. That was the end of it right there. The Marxists in Washington, D.C., the Marxist, Communist, and the Democrat Party gave that war to North Vietnam, gave them the victory. And that Ted guy down there in Atlanta, he went over to Vietnam in 1985, the 10th anniversary of them taking over South Vietnam, and he interviewed. Ho Chi Minh was dead by then, but General Gipp was still alive, and Gipp said they were within minutes of surrendering 3 times because of America's bombing, our logistical ability to just bomb them into the Stone Age. But for some strange reason, the Marxists in Washington, D.C. would get our president to stop the bombing. And that's what led to the victory. And if Trump continues to stop bombing over in Iran, they'll win that war. And, Trump can claim victory all he wants to. But if you stop the bombing and they recoup their losses and get back on their feet, and they'll win. But and that's what happened in Vietnam. Our Democrat Party and Marxists in Washington, D.C. kept helping the communists win that war. It's amazing what the Democrat Party has gotten away with over the last 100 years or so in infiltrating communism in our government and basically helping the communists out all they can. And now we got them running for office and getting elected here in the United States, and that's got to be halted, because they will pull the rug out from under our logistical strength and the strength of our military. It just but logistics, supply, wins wars, wins battles, wins wars. America is definite proof of that over and over and over. Look how we dominated old Saddam Hussein back during the 1990 and 91 Gulf War. We kicked his butt basically because we were able to move logistics in there by the shipload and the plane load, so we just overwhelmed him with firepower and basically wiped him out. He went from, I think, the fourth largest army in the world to like the 210th largest army in the world. And we did it like in 2 or 3 days. And we could do that to Iran right now if Trump would use the same skills that Schwarzenegger used during the Gulf War. But anyway, logistics, supplies. I mean, you walk through our we just had a World Cup where footballers came from all over the world, playing soccer, to the United States, and we hosted the World Cup here in the United States. Spain ended up winning it. They beat Argentina 1-0 in the championship game. And awesome. And those footballers came over here. They'd been propagandized that America was crap, but they come over here, they found out we are a great country, we are a polite country, we have great people, if we just get the socialists and the communists out of the way. And they were overwhelmed by the supplies on the shelves of our grocery stores, and the cars that we have and drive and everything. How overwhelmingly our industrial capacity, we have everything you could possibly want for happiness and satisfaction and good eating and good living here in the United States. Those footballers were amazed, and they went back with good positive images of the United States, and they were able to recount, basically deny the lies that they had been told about the United States. And because our ability to produce is just amazingly overwhelming. And that's what a free market is all about. A free market where you can take your money, start a business, produce things, and make a profit and get rich. And that's what it's all about over here. Not communism, not socialism, because socialism has to take, and that's taxing, stealing, taking. They have to take because they don't produce. The free market produces. And it's unbelievably great what we can do. But anyway, this is your Hillbilly Historian coming to you from the hills of East Tennessee here in Appalachia on this wonderfully beautiful, warm July day. And folks, it's only 5 weeks to football season. We'll play some football. That's what we want. And yes, sir, buddy. We believe in football here in Tennessee. And only 5 weeks till kickoff starts. And I'm really looking forward to another football season. I love our football. But anyway, this is your Hillbilly Historian signing off here in the hills of East Tennessee. You have a wonderful, beautiful day.